Coreopsis is right up there with coneflower and black-eyed Susans when it comes to being beginner-friendly. This means it's beginner-friendly for seed collection, starting from seed, and transplanting in your garden. If you're starting a native garden from scratch and working with a budget, Coreopsis is an excellent flower to include in your overall plan. This tutorial is going to be short and easy because this process is so simple. Without further ado, let's get collecting. It's early August right now, and I have so many Coreopsis seed heads that are ready to be harvested. These ones in front of me that are crispy and brown and dry, they are more than ready to have their seeds be harvested for planting in the spring. But you might notice that there's still a couple flower heads on this Coreopsis. Coreopsis is a really long bloomer, so something that's kind of unique about it is you're likely to have flower heads in all phases of production. So even though we have a couple flower heads that still have fresh petals on them, we also have flower heads that are completely expired and have turned into seed heads at this point and are totally ready to be harvested. And of course, we have everything in between the flowering and the seed head stage. As I mentioned before, this is a super easy process for collecting these seeds, and probably the trickiest part of this process is identifying seed heads that are actually ready to be harvested. Before I get too far into this video, I also want to mention that this process of seed collection applies to all varieties of Coreopsis. The variety that we're working with today is Coreopsis, also known as lanceleaf Coreopsis, Coreopsis lanceolata, but you can apply this process to any of the native varieties of Coreopsis and it will work for you. Now, with that long bloom time, one of the most difficult parts of this process is properly identifying a seed head that's actually ready to be harvested. So in front of me, we have a wide variety of brown seed heads here. One of the easiest ways to tell if your seed head is ready to be harvested is from touch. A seed head that's ready to be harvested will have a paper texture to it and should have a crunching sound if you put your finger up against it. If the seed head feels damp at all or doesn't have that crispy texture to it, then it's likely not ready or at least isn't dry enough to be harvested. Color is another great way to tell. So you can see that this seed head here is kind of a light beige brown, whereas this one here is a nice dark brown, almost bordering on black. So we really want the darker colored seed heads that feel nice and dry to the touch. Even if you are working with a seed head that's a little bit lighter and you think this feels pretty dry and it might be ready, the seeds inside might not be mature enough to have a successful germination rate, so you really want to avoid harvesting these seeds too early. This guy down here is an expired bloom. All the petals have died off, but he is way too moist and green to be ready, so he needs at least another week to dry out here. This guy here in the middle, he is nice and brown, very crispy to the touch, and if I peek inside, I can see a few seeds in there. We're going to dump this guy upside down and you can see that those seeds will readily fall right into your container. A single seed head can contain up to 30 seeds usually, and this is quite a few for a single seed head considering just how many seed heads we have total in this patch here. When the seeds are ready, they should easily fall out of these seed heads. You'll likely come across a couple seed heads that have already dumped their seeds on the ground, or maybe the birds have gotten to them, but either way, that's fantastic. We want to make sure we're saving some for the finches, saving some for reseeding. So with just a few seed heads, we have a really nice collection of seeds going in our container here. I'm going to keep harvesting a few more. Now, a general rule of thumb is we want to leave at least 20 to 30% of our seed heads in place. This enables the birds to be able to eat some of those seeds and also allows my patch to kind of self-seed and reseed itself so it can continue to grow and regenerate year after year. So looking at a couple of these up close, this guy here is just too green. We have a couple of these that are just too green and not quite ready to be harvested here, and that's okay. We'll wait another couple weeks on those. This guy here, still a little bit too green, starting to dry out, so maybe just another week on those. But these brown ones up here, on this one here, you can literally see the seeds starting to fall out. That's how easily they're able to be retrieved here. So a lot of these up top are definitely ready to be harvested. All right, we have a nice little collection of seeds to get started with. So let's take these into our workshop and I'll show you how we dry them out. Okay, we have our container of seeds right here. We did a good job with collecting. That was maybe seeds from about 10, maybe 12 seed heads there. They feel nice and dry to the touch. We've gotten a ton of rain lately, so I am glad to feel that they feel dry at least. But drying out is definitely one of the most important parts of this process to ensure viability for the following season. Before we dry these out though, I want to pick out a little bit of what we call the chaff. And that is just the particulate that's a part of the seed head. So this is a good example. It's just kind of like a curled up dead leaf, remnants of the old petals, a little bit of the casing that the seed head is coming in. So any sort of those larger pieces that you're able to pull out with your fingers is just beneficial. It's less organic material that can grow mold or mildew and just is overall better for your seed starting initiatives the following season. Now, Coreopsis is a heavier seed. It's a slightly heavier seed, so you can lightly blow on this to get a little bit of the chaff out, but just make sure that you are very lightly blowing on it. We don't want to run the risk of wasting our seeds across our table space here. But if you just lightly blow, you can see all of those little remnants that kind of came out when I blew in there. So that's another good way just to get some of the loose debris out of there. Now, once you've removed what you can, your seeds are ready to start the drying process. And the drying process is exactly what it sounds like. We want to make sure that these seeds get as dry as they possibly can before we put them in their storage over the winter months. You can dry in a couple different ways, but my favorite way is just brown paper bags or brown paper envelopes. I'm out of brown paper bags today, so I am going to use my smaller envelopes here. And I would literally just take this. I don't want to pour all of these in here. It's a pretty small envelope, but maybe about a third. So I put those seeds inside of this little envelope here, and I'm not going to seal it yet. I'm just going to kind of flatten these out here. You can kind of bend over that tab just to keep them in place, and I'm going to leave them flat on the table exactly like this. The whole goal of the brown paper bag concept is the fact that it's a breathable material, so airflow can get in and out of this, but it doesn't allow any light in. We don't want any light to hit our seeds while they're drying. So this is exactly how these are going to stay for the next week. I might even go closer to 2 weeks because we've just gotten so much rain and humidity lately that the air has been very, very damp. So I really want to make sure these dry out. I'm going to leave them for over a week right here in this little envelope. And then we're just going to take our 2 little envelopes, put them in a safe place right up here on our shelf, and that's where they're going to stay for the next 2 weeks. So sit tight. I'll check back in a couple weeks and we'll talk about what we do to store them over the winter. It's been 2 full weeks that I let these guys dry out, which should have been more than enough time to ensure that all of the moisture has left these seeds. What I'm left with now is really nice dried seeds. I can feel that they are crunchy, crispy, dry between my fingers here. And they're also nice and hard. They are not pliable. They are not soft and squishy. These are nice, hardened, dried seeds. I still have a little bit of plant debris in here. If I see any of that I can pick out with my fingers, I'll do so. But other than that, I'm really not going to worry too much about any additional plant debris left behind in this batch of seeds. As long as you can confirm that your seeds are completely dry, then you are ready for the very last step, and that is seed storage. This is a fancy seed storage case. It's unbelievably cheap to buy, but you don't necessarily have to have something like this. What you do have to have is a dry, safe option for your seed storage. So this is a seed storage kit, and you can totally recreate this with stuff at home. A lot of people use old medicine bottles, but what you want to make sure is that you have a container that's going to stay watertight. So you want to make sure that humidity and moisture cannot get into this container. And then you also want to make sure that whatever you're storing your seeds in is entirely opaque. So I like to use this seed storage kit because it comes with these really handy little plastic containers that all go inside of this hard shell case, which is completely opaque once it's zipped up. This is a really good option for me. It keeps everything in one location, but like I said, you can probably make something very similar to this at home using materials that you have around the house. For today's seeds, we're gonna take the seeds that we have in this envelope, we are going to dump them right into this little container here. When I have larger batches of seeds like this, I like to split them up into at least 2 separate storage containers. What that does for me is if I have anything in here that's going to create mold, mildew, that isn't quite dried out, I won't lose my entire batch because I'm putting the other half of the batch in a separate container. This is just a precaution I like to take. We rely heavily on these seeds to create profit because these are the plants that we grow and sell at our plant nursery. So it's super important to me that I have viable seeds next year. If that's not so important to you, you probably don't have to split it up into 2 batches. This is just a precaution that I take for our own business. Once your seeds are in their container, you must label them. There were a lot of years when I was like, oh, I'll for sure know what that is next year. I didn't, and I work with seeds all the time. So a lot of native seeds look the same. They have similar shapes, similar colors, similar attributes, and they're hard to tell apart a year later. The other thing that I want to include on here is the year that I harvested these seeds. There's a chance I might not use all these seeds next year, and I want to make sure that I'm keeping my seeds. Usually 3 years is my general rule of thumb. Of course, if you store your seeds properly, they can last for many, many years beyond that. But for us, time is money, and any tray that we fill with seeds, we want to make sure it germinates to the maximum amount possible. So we want to make sure that our seeds are used within 3 years. My seeds are labeled. They are labeled with their scientific name because, of course, all Coreopsis seeds look the same. So these are my lance leaf Coreopsis, my Coreopsis lanceolata. They were harvested in 2026. All of that is on my label. I'm going to take these, pop them into their designated compartments in my handy dandy and ultra dorky little seed starting kit here. Close that lid, zip it up. And this guy is going to last the winter just fine. You might be asking, why can't we store them in these cute little envelopes? These envelopes are fantastic for drying seeds out because, as I mentioned earlier, they allow air to go in and out. They are permeable. What they will also allow is moisture. So if you have a high humidity area or you want to store your seeds in a basement or a garage, all of that moisture is going to be absorbed by these envelopes and transferred into your seeds, making them less viable. So avoid paper options like this for long-term storage. These are totally fine if you're only storing for a month or 2. These are also fantastic if you plan to do dry cold stratification, which is a totally different topic, calls for a totally different video, and it is a method of cold stratification that can be used on Coreopsis seeds. Coreopsis is a wonderful native plant to grow from seed. It is super easy to collect these seeds and start this plant from seed. And of course, our seed starting video is coming up next. So if this is the type of content that you are into, definitely subscribe to our channel and set up those alerts so that you know when the next video drops. Just a quick reminder, we have a monthly newsletter. This is a totally free newsletter. We talk about everything from native plant tips, native plants of the month, removing invasive species, and of course, native landscape design, which we also do virtual consultations for. If you want to learn anything about all of the above, click the links in the description below, and I'll also link the newsletter up above here. You've heard it all before, but I'm going to say it again. Every minute that you spend on this channel seriously helps out small businesses like ours so much. You're helping to get our name out there. You're helping to get native plants out there. And overall, you are really, really helping our small business. We cannot thank you enough. I appreciate you tuning in with us today, and I sure hope to catch you next time. Bye-bye.